Yeah. Is it what?
Yes, as it is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to resource because I need to leave and then. And the practice. Moderator. Okay, market development. Is this?
It must be delayed, isn't it?
Yeah, he's.
For a second, I think it was delayed because my head was not moving. It was always a period of delay. That's the camera.
Why? And do they talk about kind of future? Or keep ignoring
Well, I'll move over. We can move over. Come on over. No, really, we want your face in the picture. Because I want people to know who's here. Want them, if they come in to get somebody, they know by look. Here we go. Ready?
Yep.
I call to order the city council meeting for the city of Petoskey for November 7th, 2024. I ask that you all rise with me for pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
She looks like a dwarf over there. Ms. Beck, city clerk, will you call roll?
Demore, present. Shields.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
Walker. Here. Murphy.
Yes, present. We have a quorum. Now, will you please look at the consent agenda? It's the October 21st, 2024 regular session city council meeting minutes, as well as acknowledge a receipt of certain administrative transactions that have occurred since October 21st, 2024. And I take it to council for questions, comments, if not a possible motion. Questions?
No questions.
Okay. Oh, good.
I'll be happy to make a motion, Mayor, to approve the minutes and the administration transactions. Support.
I have a motion from Ms. Walker, second from Ms. Demore. I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Walker. Yes. Demore. Aye. Shields.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 5-0 for the consent agenda. Now, this is your opportunity for public comments. If there's something on the agenda that you wish to stay here for, and I prefer you do that because that way you can be a part of the discussion. But if there is anything that somebody would wish to speak to council with, please step to the mic. Turn on the thing for green and give us your full name and full address. Do you wish to speak?
Yeah, it's about winter sports parks. I'm not sure if that's now or.
If you can wait, it probably, okay. I'm hoping to get home sooner than later tonight, so we'll be moving right along. Thank you. Any other people on the web? No. There being none, I go to city manager for the update. City Manager Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. As this is our first meeting of the month, I want to celebrate and highlight some staff birthdays and work anniversaries. A number of staff birthdays this month, and I also included, and I'll try to do this going forward, city council to this list. So you are obviously part of the team here. So the month of November, Lisa Denoyer and actually myself celebrated a birthday this week. Val Meyerson celebrates a birthday, library director today. Marty Flynn, water wastewater superintendent. Matt Mikulski, lieutenant at public safety. Cindy Nielsen, water wastewater. Bridget Lemure in finance. Our own Tina Demore and city council. Next week, Mike Petrowski, Public Works, Dave Kruski, Parks, Detective Lamont, Public Safety, and City Council Member Lindsay Walker later this month. So happy birthday to all.
First time we clap for
So work anniversaries this month. Hunter Arnold in public safety celebrates 4 years with the city this month. Will Bowen, public safety, 6 years. Mike Petrowski, Public Works, 8 years. Drew Levison, Electric Department, 8 years. Jordan Rea, Water, Wastewater, 8 years. Lisa Blair in Finance Department, 9 years. Bob Nichols, Public Works, 12 years. And Director Carr, Public Safety Director, 20 years this month with the city. Want to turn over the next couple slides to Sarah so she can kind of give us an overview of our general election that we just went through.
So as we all know, 2024 was a very busy election cycle. So just wanted to point out a few things, especially from Tuesday, but also for my staff of election inspectors and city staff that helps out. So just wanted to let you guys know, because as we all know, this year started the new early voting method. So kind of broke it down just so you guys to see. This is only Tuesday, obviously. So the overall turnout for the city was 3,567 voters, so 70%. We have registered voters just under 5,100. So early voters, we had 561 people go to the early vote center at the VFW hall. Election day, as you can see, 1,316. And then absentee ballot is still by far almost half of our voters are voting by mail absentee ballot. So just wanted to mention that. And then I am giving a huge shout out. Thank you to our election inspectors. So as we know, they do volunteer their time, but also they are paid as part of payroll for the city. So I am going to name every single one of these folks because they worked on Tuesday, and a lot of them worked all year and have for many, many years. So early voting, the city, I was the site supervisor on October 28th, and Christine Gebhard was the chair, Emily Meyerson and Laura Scallerup. Receiving board is the board of inspectors that check everyone out at the end of the evening to make sure everything is balanced. And we have 3 teams, and it's Jennifer Fordyce and Jill excuse me. Jennifer Fordyce and Jill Thompson were a team. Christine Gebhard and Rick Lloyd were a team. And then our city staff members, Audrey Plath and Nicole Stradling. And then for Ward 1, we had shifts. I started that in May. So some of them like the shift changes. So it's not a full 16+ hour day. It's more like 8 to 9 hours, but some do still stay for the whole day. So Ward 1, Laura Scallerup was chair, and then we had Sherry McGuffin, Wanda White, Rose Fitzgerald, Erwin Doublestein, Charlie Wilmot, and Emily Meyerson. Ward 2, Agnes Shaw was chair, Norm Daniel, Carol Jarvie, Lee Phillips, Linda Vanderberg, Wanda White. And then Ward 3, Elaine Pelt chaired, Jill Thompson, Nicole Keck, Donna Wiklansky, Kate Marshall. Thank you, Kate. Joe Nachtraub. And then Ward 4, we had Patty McLeese chaired, Toby or Thomas Darden, Sue Moffett, Laura Baird, Christine Gebhard, and Jennifer Zaremba. And then we had another 5th precinct, if you will, our AV County Board that processes all the ballots. And Lisa Lloyd was a chair, Jennifer Fordyce, Mary Peterman, Grace Ketchum, Rick Lloyd, and Kath Melby. So thank you to all of them. And then I did also just kind of want to read this aloud also. I want to especially thank my coworkers, Adriana Bishop, Nicole Stradling, and Audrey Plath for assisting me with administering 4 elections this year, along with Parks and Recreation staff who helps assist with setup and tear down, and public safety with extra precautions and patrols on Tuesday. The most sincere thanks goes to the 30+ election inspectors that work tirelessly on election day to provide a transparent and bipartisan process. Election inspectors make democracy happen. Their dedication, expertise, and commitment to fair and secure elections shines through. Their efforts make all the difference, and I can't thank everyone enough. I'm grateful to work with such a wonderful team. So. Oh.
And I know Sarah won't do this. She certainly won't pat herself on the back, but Sarah obviously did an outstanding job coordinating this. as she has done it with other elections as well. But it's a huge undertaking, especially for a smaller community, smaller workforce. It's all hands on deck. And Sarah mentioned our staff. Audrey was here on election night, here at City Hall. We had a lineup of people trying to get things coordinated so they could cast their ballot. So we had 2 staff members here, then went to the voting precinct and assisted there as well. So it was a late night. And again, thanks to Sarah for helping coordinate everything. I know even well prior to the election, she was handling a lot of phone calls, assisting people, through this whole process. So thank you, Sarah, for all of your outstanding work. And thank you to City Council for your flexibility in moving our meeting, because I think while Sarah obviously is still a little tired from Tuesday, at least it gave her a day to kind of catch her breath, and we can kind of go through our normal meeting, hopefully. So thank you for your flexibility and allowing us to rotate this meeting. So a few other highlights. Mike wanted me to let folks know we have made 2 cycles around the city with leaf pickup. And we will make one more pickup. We're going to take next week off. As you know, next week is a holiday in northern Michigan with deer hunting coming up. So we're going to be thin with staffing next week toward the end of the week. So we're going to take next week off, allow hopefully any final leaves to drop. And then the week of the 18th, we'll come back and do a sweep of the entire city, hopefully one last time. So you can let your friends and neighbors know that we'll be through the city again the week of the 18th, the entire city. I think I had one more. Yes, Kendall wanted me to let folks know that we are programming an event. This is kind of our first time doing this. Hopefully we can continue to do events at the Winter Sports Park, the Lodge. So this will hopefully give parents a night out to maybe do some Christmas shopping, or just go out and have a nice meal in the town, and then just drop the kids off. So our summer camp counselors will be facilitating the opportunity on November 23rd. That is from 5 to, what does that time say? 5 to 8 p.m. on the 23rd. So we encourage parents to take advantage of that opportunity and maybe get started. Well, if you're like me, get started with Christmas shopping. Some of you are probably done. Any questions for me?
I know City Council thanks Sarah for leading a clean election for the city, and I appreciate that, Sarah, as well as all the people that worked at it. It's fantastic that people pulled together here and make things happen smoothly. Anyone else has comments? Ms. Walker?
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for the reporting. Thank you, Shane, for the reporting back as well. And thank you, Sarah, for your due diligence and running an amazing election. I just had a question. Do you feel like it was about 10% were the people on remote location voting, and 70% turnout overall? So is that higher than previous general elections?
I looked up in 2020 and the overall turnout citywide was 62%, if I remember correctly. So it was definitely higher on Tuesday. Mhm.
Anyone else, council? There being none, we'll move on. Number 7 on the agenda is the appointment. Bring forward for the Planning Commission, Bob Kronberg, a resident of Petoskey for, I think it said 58 years. He served on the Planning Commission 2019 to 2021 due to COVID, and he works at the hospital in some administrative capacity. And when things lightened up, he has put his application in and request his interest in serving. Ms. Walker?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question about who had vacated their previous term.
Doug Buck had resigned.
I would move to appoint Robert Kronberg to fill the vacated position on the planning commission.
I'll second the motion, Mayor.
Any other discussion? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Demore,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Shields,
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Congratulations, Mr. Kronberg. He called or texted me and said he was hoping to be here. Was unable to due to some of the commitment, I think, with work. Next is old business, is the adoption of a proposed resolution that would confirm acceptance of a recommended special assessment role that would spread cost of programs and services as requested by the city's downtown management board. And that would schedule a November 18th public hearing to receive comments concerning these proposed special assessments. I turn it over to, I think we've gone through this already at the last meeting. Do you have questions? Comments? A motion? Mr. Shields.
Make a motion that we adopt the proposed resolution.
No support. I have a motion from Mr. Shields, a second from Mr. Wagner. Any other discussion? Public wish to comment to council on this? There being none, I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Shields.
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Demore.
Aye.
Murphy.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Ms. Tweeden is in the back. She's our downtown management director right here. There you go. You guys don't know her, but I just thought I'd let you know. She's here and I see her smiling because the assessment is passed. Next is the adoption of a proposed resolution on the obligations of the ARPA money funds. We've been kicking this down the road now for several years. We're at a end of the road. We need to make a decision, or we could possibly lose this funding. And city manager has come up with a plan of action. I turn it over to city manager Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. So this kind of just continues our discussion. In my memo, and this is right out of the ARPA guidelines, but ARPA started with, if you look at my memo, the first four categories were what was approved. And then the 23, they did a interim rule that added numbers 5, 6, and 7 as potential uses for the funds. So one of the things that Audrey's here as well. So Audrey and I have been working with our auditor and our attorney to get guidance on essentially trying to set the money into use revenue replacement as a category, putting it into the public safety budget, which is an allowable use of funds, and then have council just essentially use fund balance for that same number, just to run through that. So we received $604,890 and change in two different tranches, if you will. Council has allocated or allowed us to partner with Emmett County on two different projects. Round one was a $50,000 match of $50,000 of Emmett County ARPA to look at snowmaking equipment and related infrastructure for Winter Sports Park. That was authorized back in June of 23. And then round two of Emmett County ARPA was another $50,000 match out of our ARPA for partnering with $50,000 in Emmett County ARPA for City Hall access control and security enhancements and audio visual improvements in this room and the community room. So when you back those numbers out of our original, and then we have earned just about $25,000 in interest income. So it leaves us with about $530,140.73. So essentially, as we've talked with our auditor, with legal, if there's a desire amongst council to obligate these funds, one option is simply to use revenue loss as a category, put it into the public safety budget in fiscal year 25. Once you receive the budget, and you'll see that this is a balanced budget, so essentially that in and of itself designates fund balance at that same amount. So council can take that $530,140 out of fund balance when you're ready to select a project or projects, at that time. That's certainly an option. I'm just kind of throwing it out there as something to consider. If you're not desirous to do that, we would, based on the definition of obligation, we would need to select a project that is essentially ready to go with a contract or a purchase order. And I've just for the sake of discussion, put down a few things that we do have quotes on. The first thing being out of Snow Machines Incorporated, we received a quote to provide snowmaking equipment and materials. You can see that number that's associated with that. That doesn't include kind of a used groomer or a vehicle that would, once the snow is made and is sitting there, we need a way to distribute that snow around the site. So we would need some sort of a grooming vehicle to move the snow around. So that quote does include a used vehicle to allow us to do that. And then I've shared with you in the past the cost for infrastructure improvements, water, electric. We are doing some surveying on the slope now to do some potential recontouring of the slope. That surveying work is ongoing. A few other projects that we kind of have queued up potentially that could meet the obligation requirements would be the Bayfront East concrete surfacing. So this is taking off where we left off at the turnaround bathrooms, replacing the asphalt that's there with concrete to tie into the concrete that's at Bay Country, or not Bay Country, what is that? One Country Sports, thank you. So we have a plan that's ready to go out to bid on that. We talked about potentially, we earmark $150,000 a year just to do resurfacing sections of the wheelway. So potentially using our allocation to essentially do a much larger project to maybe get us caught up a little bit on the wheelway overall. We have some skate park equipment that's in dire need of replacing at the skate park. We do have a quote on that we could move forward with. And then I just threw this in there. We're going through the master planning process, but one of the things that we've discussed at Washington Park, which is one of our neighborhood parks, is really doing an updated playground system, if you will, within the park. So just a few things that we came up with fairly quickly if we wanted to actually enter into a contract or purchase arrangement to kind of get obligation done now, or we are going through a master planning process currently for the winter sports park. That'll likely carry us into the new year, through the winter, where we would get concepts put together, have an open house scenario where people can come and go, put their sticky notes on things that are of interest to them. And then once we know kind of what that interest looks like, obviously come back and maybe select a few projects that there's some consensus around and move forward at that time once the master planning process is done. So that's just kind of an overview of kind of the memo and a potential resolution to give us a little bit of direction. So certainly would entertain your questions and feedback.
Council.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Shane. Can you, so on page 56 of the document, kind of outlining the ARPA obligations. So the backside of that page, there's a statement here that says, I would recommend under the provision of government services, under the revenue loss eligibility category to the public safety revenue activity. What's public safety revenue? You mean general fund dollars?
Yeah, so that would be general fund. So public safety is a eligible use, and has been an eligible use under the ARPA allocation. So essentially, we would put these dollars into the public safety revenue budget for fiscal year 25. And again, the budget is balanced and will be balanced. It is balanced. So that creates a designation of, or will create a designation of fund balance. So council would have the ability to use those funds, you know, based on where the consensus is, but that's where that money would go. Audrey would track it that way, and we'd be able to follow it.
So the reason is because Parks and Recreation's revenue activity, it couldn't fall under that because that's not an approved expense?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Moore.
So just first point of clarification, I think I already know the answer to this. But the difference between the number in the resolution, the 53140.73, and the total on the account inquiry is because October interest isn't included there yet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then just for the record, the auditor and the attorney have reviewed this, and they have approved and confirmed that moving the remaining ARPA funds in the amount of $530,140.73 as proposed here constitutes an obligation per the relevant treasury and other rules and regulations. Is that correct?
I would say our auditor is, Audrey talked to her again today. She's very familiar with this. She's worked with other of her clients to go in this direction and is very comfortable moving us into this direction. We've already submitted a lot of the background to her, and she's pretty comfortable where we're at with that. And certainly she would be the one to, from an auditor standpoint, as our CPA, make sure that we're checking all the appropriate boxes. So I've tried to get our legal as well. He was tied up today, and so weren't able to connect completely. But we were really going off of what our auditor was telling us, you know, giving us that guidance and input.
Right, and the attorney did at least indicate that this is a permissible use of those funds for personnel costs.
Yes.
Okay. And then again, just for the record, it's my understanding that in doing so, to meet the obligation before the end of the year, the thinking is that this equal amount of money, $530,140.73, would be essentially segregated, designated, delineated in some way, that it would not be used pending a city council review of the Winter Sports Park and perhaps all these other options here to make a decision how that clump of money, clump being a term of reference, would be used.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then I'm just kind of following up a little bit too. Do you have a timetable for the assessment of the Winter Sports Park, the different aspects, and really include an overview of all aspects? So for example, understanding we have climate change, is there anything we can do with the outdoor figure skating rink and other aspects? Just that as an example.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that will be part of the opportunity for people to engage with us, where their priorities are and what that could look like. Certainly having, typically our process has been waiting on I'll say to me significant, up here probably not significant, like a 6 to 10 inch snow to start packing it, to start the process of getting the foundation built for the larger rink. With having a snowmaker there nearby, starting that process earlier would allow us to more time to hopefully extend that opportunity for people to use it. Because right now, short of again, that first snowfall, we're kind of waiting for that to happen so we can start the process. So
I probably didn't answer I asked my question very well. Really, what I was getting at was in this master planning process, will that rank in other aspects be looked at as well as the snow hill?
yes,
Okay.
yes. And also there's other, I see Council Member Walker has it in her hand, but there is a needs assessment that has been, that is pretty well put together. So there's other needs there at the Winter Sports Park. The deck, we've talked about which I think would be a really neat feature to add an outdoor, fireplace, feature near the deck where folks can kind of get warm, watch their loved ones on the rink or down the hill, and kind of stay around the fire if they so chose not to participate. So I think that would be a neat feature to add at some point as well. But we've already addressed the windows and doors, and the roof. The shell itself likely needs some assistance, whether that's siding or just some painting and some freshening up. So that would incorporate those items as well, in those documents. So.
Thank you. So I will just say from my perspective, understanding what I see in front of me and what I've heard this evening, I support this transfer to obligate these funds in this way to allow us time for decision-making and community input. That's not to say that, with the benefit of that input, we might end up selecting one of these other options on the page, but it gives us the time to have the information that we need and the community input, I think, that we're interested in. So, thank you.
Mr. Wagner. I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly what I was thinking, there's a lot of these things in here that go do the research we don't want to rush into a purchase decision and obligate those funds to something specific that we don't need to rush into. So I fully agree with that. Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a prepared statement I want to read. I would like to see the city be even more collaborative with its citizens, their requests and initiatives. Individual citizens will not always get what they're asking for, but the attitude of the city should be one that is inviting public participation. The city is not a private business, though it needs to operate financially like one. It must engage in decision-making that is more democratic. That means it will be less linear, perhaps messy. It involves networking and aiming for effectiveness, perhaps at the expense of efficiency. The city has professionals with expertise and experience who are paid to make decisions, but those professionals work on behalf of the residents and should remain responsive to them. I think of the Citizen Tree Committee or ideas for improvements such as getting more recycling bins downtown that remain hanging out there unaddressed. Even wild ideas like a public pool. What are small, simple acts, pilots, experiments that the city could empower them to take on instead of saying, that will never happen here? Maybe that citizen would gather 30 kiddie pools for a Saturday in one of the parks to start a discussion on a public pool. I want to thank Mr. Smith for listening to the concerns of veterans next week about the proposed changes to Penn Park. I too was invited and will go to listen and learn their point of view. What does this have to do with the ARPA obligation? There is a difference between providing public space for resident input as required by law and actually seeing the community as full leaders with valuable input to contribute. I don't think we would be here with our backs to the wall today on this ARPA money if we would have given the community more opportunities to engage and not feel shut out of decision making. With that said, I do support the resolution as the best option going forward right now. Thank you.
Mr. Moore.
I just have one side issue I want to put on the record as well, that doesn't pertain directly to what we're doing today, but just so it's on everybody's radar. And I did ask this question to Shane last night to put to our attorney. One thing I do want to have clarity on is on these two matches that we've already done, the 50,000 or 100, both round one and round two. I know that we need to obligate our 50,000 before the end of the year. And I understand that the Emmett County has obligated the other 50,000 to us. But I just want to be sure that even in that circumstance, we don't have to obligate that balance of 50 for a total of 100 being obligated as versus 50 being obligated before the end of the year. So I would just ask that we get, a confirmation of that from council.
We did get confirmation from our auditor, correct, Audrey? I'm looking,
At the end, the both matching reps.
yes.
Right.
Okay. Yes, I did receive confirmation from our auditor to review both of the contracts. And they are the ones with, the auditors are the ones within the audit that decide if we're compliant or not compliant. And so she did say that we would be compliant, that the grants that have already gone to council, the resolution do meet the obligation requirements for the city local match.
So I understand that relative to the 50,000, our 50,000 of ARPA money.
Right,
So-
our 250,000.
Right, so my question is as to the match money. So Emmett County matched each of those 50 with a matching 50. So my question is, even though Emmett, as I understand it, has obligated those funds by sending them to us, do we have to obligate those funds before the end of the year?
Not the county match, we do not, that is on the county end for their reporting.
Okay, so we can spend that.
Yeah, that's up to the county to submit to ARPA that obligation. That's their, because we're a subaward underneath their allocation. So just reading a portion of the agreement with the city and Emmett County, it essentially says public body, which public body is the city. City understands that the grant funds it receives under this agreement are a subaward of counties' ARPA funds, and that the county is required to manage and monitor and subrecipient of the ARPA funds. Therefore, the city agrees to comply with subrecipient monitoring requirements established by county or under federal law. So it will be the county that submits to ARPA for that designation.
So do we have any time limitation on expending those $50,000
Yes.
clumps that came to us, clumps again, came to us from the county?
It was 2 years after executing the agreement. The first round was, see,
March 2025, that's the first one.
and I think it's June or July was the second one. So yeah, March is the first one. So yeah, we'll make sure that we've meet those requirements for certain.
So then the only thing I'd request, Audrey, Ms. Plath, if we could please, to see something in writing from the auditor that makes that clear. I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you. So I understand that in terms of where that money will be, placed in the interim has to go to public safety because that is an approved, revenue activity source, according to ARPA where it can go. But then the money isn't being dispersed via public safety. It would be potentially dispersed in what is mostly looking like, related to parks and recreation. So I guess I'm a little confused. Is it just a formality that it gets held there as a placeholder, but it can be dispersed later with projects?
Yeah, it's just, that's an allowable use of those funds. They've earmarked public safety as an allowable use from a revenue loss standpoint within the ARPA program. So we're using that as that placeholder, if you will.
Okay.
Yes.
And because it comes out of a general fund, which also Parks and Rec, both Parks and Rec and Public Safety are the ones that primarily use the
Yes.
general funds, like
Yep.
the lion's share.
Yep.
So because it's in this general fund, but it's gonna be allotted over to public safety, but that gives it flexibility in terms of the actual execution of what the projects will be further down the line. Okay,
Yes.
so it's like a formality and what's approved.
Yeah.
But how that money is dispersed and what projects it goes to can be determined at a later date.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be public safety related.
Designate that fund balance use based on once there's consensus on projects going forward.
And then I have two more questions, if I may, Mayor.
Please.
Excuse me, thank you. So my other questions were, we had a list of potential projects here, and these are just kind of ideas.
Yes.
Wouldn't the Little Traverse Wheelway Bayfront East Concrete Surface, wouldn't that be part of like the Arboretum project that's proposed? And wouldn't you use TIFA funds for that because that isn't a TIFA area?
That is eligible for TIFA, so that might not be the greatest use, but it is a section of the wheelway that's in dire need of attention. And it's kind of one of those shovel-ready ones, ready to go. But yes, you are right, that is eligible for TIFA.
Thank you. And then my second, if I may, Mayor. So in the Washington Park Playground System, just this year, we had purchased a right-of-way. Or we sold or we purchased a right-of-way. Okay, so we sold a right-of-way and it was for,
Not the whole thing.
Right.
no, right. So that would be the Emmett Street to Washington Park access.
Mhm.
And so wouldn't we want to first make that accessible? And what would the cost be for that to create the access between Emmett Street and Washington Park? And wouldn't that be a priority before any potential like playground renovations?
No, that's a good point, but I don't think those are large dollars. Between landscaping and sidewalk and contouring around the slope there, that wouldn't be a large project. But you're right, if you're gonna spend that much money on a playground, you'd want to make sure people have good access to get there. So that's a good point.
There are good access on both sides of the park at this point.
Yeah.
The access on Emmett Street has basically never been used. I lived across from it years ago. It was never utilized, and that's one reason why the city has sold the two pieces next to it, so it's just gonna be a pathway.
Yep, a linear path.
Access to it is, and parking is on both ends. Personally, I see Washington Park as being a part of where we need to go with this whole thing. We need to look at establishing a possible millage, a Parks and Rec millage, where hopefully maybe in November of this coming 2025, where we can take and identify each park, including the skate park, which needs to be addressed. It's not really a park, but legally, but it is a park. I think there are things that we need to address in each and every park, whether it be Lockwood, Curtis, Washington. I think we could do a better job, as well as Winter Sports Park, by wrapping this into one major part for funding. And I think if we went for a millage where it was either, say, a 10-year millage, at least, where we can start looking at supplying these parks. We've driven around, you all have seen them, we've gone and visited them. They've been neglected in some ways. They don't look like the waterfront, Washington Park, Lockwood Park. All of them could use a good boost. Winter Sports Park specifically as well. And I think we need to come up with a master game plan, that we can come up with one that we can go to public and ask for their support for a millage and address these parks. I think some of these parks need a one bathroom facility at each of our 4 parks. I think there's enough use where we have a porta john in 1 or 2 of them. I think we could step up the game, and I think we could have a rest room type bathroom. Doesn't have to be elaborate. Simplify it to 1 stall. I think that we need to start looking at taking care of what we have for the residents. I think we've avoided taking care of that piece of it. I think we've been very transparent at this point in what we do at city council. I know there's comments about not being transparent. Everything is posted. We ask people get with city. We always have gotten back, at least I have. So I think this is the answer to some of this, the skate park, the Washington Park, the winter sports park. I think we're gonna have some issues. I know some of you are really pushing the snow machines, the groomers. You gotta know that those are usually have to be operated at nighttime. I don't know if any of you have ever been over to Boyne Highlands. I have spent evenings there with friends. After hours, I have friends that work there, and I got to ride in snowmobiles with them and stuff. And I want to tell you, it is loud, it's bright, it's noisy. And I have concerns for the residents. That's one address that we have to address is that, okay? It doesn't mean that I won't support it, but I think you guys talk, I hear the word transparency all the time. I think we need to be very transparent that some of these things are not going to be as community accepted by all neighbors as others. But I think what we need to do is do a millage that would take care of a lot of this situation right now. Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been very vocal in my support of a Parks and Recreation millage over the past 2 years. And I also know that it takes a tremendous amount of public will and trust to pass a millage. And I know that Petoskey voters, whether we're talking about a public safety millage or a Charlotte millage, we've always been very supportive of those millages. And I would hope that a millage would also, unlike grants and other funds that we normally support, our Parks and Recreation Department would go towards operations as well. Because I know that that is one of the caveats that makes it more difficult, because the funds will come in via grants for infrastructure or capital improvements, but it never funds operations. So, and I know that also takes a tremendous amount of work on behalf of the city to figure out the timing of a millage, but it's really based on public trust. And if we're not hyper transparent and we're like building the capacity of our residents to participate in this, I think they might be less inclined to vote in favor of a millage. So I would hope that we could provide the support and we could show good face about, what a millage would look like. And that way you're garnishing the support before you go to the polls to vote. And I know that Shahram does a good job, just for an example of like how they educate the voters in anticipation of a millage. And I don't know if the city has the same opportunity to do that like an ISD would. And also in the capital improvement plan from 2021, you could see that it was lined out, year 1 through 5. And many of these things are mentioned, including like the ice rink and refrigeration and possible upgrading of electrical and water service utilities. So I know it's very complex, and I know that we've gotten a little bit of piecemeal information and updated data, post pandemic, that like all of these prices have probably doubled, if not tripled. So I guess I'm just trying to piece together what has already been proposed via capital improvement plans and the 2024, so approved last year in 2023, the Winter Sports Park Pavilion project was actually itemized on the 2024 Parks and Special Facilities for $100,000. So I don't know if that just was like a placeholder or what we envisioned being able to leverage that money as part of the pavilion project. But I guess I'm just trying to pull together the pieces from the history so that we can, like with full transparency, and lay it all out on the table. This is where we've been and this is where we're headed and this is the why.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. Moore?
If this question got answered, I missed it and I apologize. What's the timeline for getting this master planning concepts done for the winter sports park?
I'm not sure we have an actual timeline. We're working on it now. I'm hoping within that first quarter of 25, we'll kind of have it wrapped up. And then obviously we would plan an open house of some sort at the park. Likely have a pretty substantial survey that we would be pushing out as well to get as much citizen feedback as we could. And then obviously use all those resources to pull together and get that in front of each of you to make some decisions on how we proceed going forward.
Thank you.
Anyone else, council? Okay, let's move. Mr. Shields.
Would you like a motion? Yeah. Prepared to make a motion there.
Please.
I move to. I make a motion for the resolution in our packet, about the use of the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA monies, as described in this resolution.
Very good. Do I have a second?
Support.
I have a second. I have a motion from Mr. Shields, second from Ms. Demore. Mr. Shields, well,
Public comment.
I haven't gotten there yet. I'm just telling what we have going. So we have a motion from Mr. Shields, a second from Ms. Demore. Now you have an opportunity to speak to council. Please give us your full name, full address council, not the public when you come up. If you wish to speak, please come up, push the button so it goes green so you can hear us. So anybody wish to speak?
Which button are we pushing?
The bar down there at the bottom, there you go.
Yeah, okay. Hi, friends. Thank you, council members, for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here today.
Full name?
Oh, I'm so sorry. You did say that.
It's the right-
Andrea Francis Coronado, Coromado. And what else do you need?
That's it.
5397 Howard Road, Petoskey, 49770.
Thank you. Now you have.
Thank you again, council members, for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here today both as a Rotarian and as a dedicated member of this community, asking you to make a decision with that funding allocation we've been discussing that could shape the future of our beloved winter sports park. The project isn't just an idea on paper. It's a vision that has inspired nearly $600,000 in support from grants and private donors over the past 3 years. Raising half the necessary funds, it seems, is a huge testament to our community's faith in this project and the difference it will make for Petoskey. To think about it, like how often as a community do we find ourselves in a position where funding aligns so perfectly with this vision? It's pretty rare. And more often than not, we have to set those big dreams aside. But right now we have a unique opportunity, and it seems the stars have aligned for Petoskey, and this council has the power to bring that vision to life. And years from now, we can look back on this moment with pride, knowing we chose to invest in a place that brings joy and connection and recreation to our community. But the final decision rests in your hands, and you have the chance to allocate the remaining funds needed to complete the project. Without this committee, the initiative will probably stall, and we'll risk losing the additional $600,000 already pledged from outside sources without costing you a dime. This isn't just about forfeiting dollars, it's also about losing the trust and the momentum that our community has worked so hard to build, and irreplaceable resource that goes beyond financial value. As we're hearing, I'm proud to say that our organization has invested nearly $300,000 in this project. That's a lot of money. The Winter Sports Park is a cornerstone of our legacy. We helped build it, and we have brought joy to generations, not only for Rotarians. If this project does not move forward, Rotary would certainly request to have the funds returned to reallocate to other pressing community needs. We all know there's no shortage of worthy causes, but it would be a profound loss to the city to miss out on this opportunity for this funding. The Winter Sports Park project stands to benefit everyone and would enhance a place deeply cherished by our community. Our residents deserve a space where families, friends, and neighbors can come together year round. We've raised half the funds, rallied community support, and built a solid foundation. And all we need now is your commitment to complete it. And the question before you is pretty simple. Do you let the vision slip away, or do you allocate the additional funds to make it a reality? And again, it's not just about funding, it's about building the future, honoring the generosity of those who have already given, and showing our community that Petoskey can dream big and follow through on the dream. I have immense trust in the expertise and dedication of our municipal staff. They have thoughtfully planned this project, and I believe in their ability to execute it with excellence. And I urge you to trust them as well. Let's move forward together and make this pavilion a reality for the families who will gather there and for every resident who believes in the potential of Petoskey. And regardless of how the funding moves forward, Rotary would request an update in the coming year as to what is transpiring, because we would then have to reevaluate if the funding will stay with this project, unfortunately. So thank you again for your time, and good luck.
Sure.
Joe O'Neill. Sure.
Who couldn't get to
Just hit it one more time. Hit your button one more time. There you go.
Yeah,
I messed up already. Okay, I'm Joe O'Neill. I live at 37 Bruce Street, Petoskey. My phone number is 347-5273 if you need that. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Been with Petoskey my whole life, graduated out here. And just a couple quick things. Is the path down from behind the apartments off of going to the park, going down that hill. I've contacted the city twice, that they got a safety problem there. We have runoff has grooved in the middle of it, and someone's gonna hurt themselves on this. I said that I contacted them a couple times. Or they need to put some gravel down there, that'd be taken care of. And one other thing is, you guys mentioned something about a swimming pool. I grew up here, and in around 1971, when they switched over from Petoskey owning the park out there to state owning the park over there, we were promised the swimming pool. And I only bring it up again now is because I remember I go to the Friendship Center, and the guys, the GI is sitting there. Part of the conversation we just had today, it just popped up was, whatever happened to the swimming pool that we were promised back in the 70s. And my suggestion was I was just gonna put a sign up where that hole is out there and say that's the new Petoskey swimming pool. But just let you know that thought and irritation is still out there. Okay? Thank you.
I know the city received $360,000 back. I thought it was before 71.
Yeah, it probably was.
Thought it was back in the mid-60s, early 60s. And it was a swap between, we picked up Magnus Park, they took the state park, and we got some funds on top of that. I couldn't tell you what happened to those funds. I do not know. Miss Walker?
No, I have a question. Joe had spoke about some erosion happening. Are you talking about Riverview Terrace, or are you talking about at the Winter Sports Park? Riverview Terrace down to the Bear River. Yeah, I am familiar. Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
A road or a walkway?
Bear River.
A walkway.
Yeah.
Are you talking on which side of on the south or north side of the bridge?
It'd be,
The south side.
yeah.
It would be right behind Riverview Terrace. Yeah.
Right behind apartments, going straight down.
Heading to the Bear. I'm familiar. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. I just needed clarification. I didn't know. If this
On the north side of Riverview Terrace.
Comes right off the parking lot.
Yeah.
On the back or front of Riverview Terrace? On the back side of Riverview, so on
Yeah.
the north side of Riverview
No, it's not.
Terrace, you know where it is.
Right.
We got it.
Recently on myself and.
Oh, Franklin, behind there.
Yeah.
Well, I know Shane's putting it in, and I'm sure you'll see it'll be addressed. I know it will be, okay?
Okay.
Hopefully it'll address it. Oh, thank you for pointing that out. I really, without knowing, thank you for doing that. Next, come on down.
I am Marcy Singer, and I know a number of you. I live at 908 Sunset Court in Petoskey. I am a lifelong, well, kind of. I was born here. I left, I came back. I have listened to this wonderful discussion about the Winter Sports Park. This is my first city council meeting. I came here for something else that I was asking the mayor about, which you'll hear in just 1 second. But I am concerned that you guys have been sitting on this amount of money for so long. And I've heard the word dire come out of Mr. Horn's mouth about the bike path and the skate park. And we're earmarking it, which I appreciate you have said that the public should be involved. There is no one here tonight. This is my first city council meeting. And I think it's personally irresponsible to sit on money in a fund that is for public safety when all of these dire needs are right now. And I don't know if you can split that money up. I'm pretty financially responsible at home, but the skate park is a place obviously that is being well utilized by kids and does not sound safe. The bike path is utilized and is not safe. this area of the walkway is not safe. People are utilizing it. This is what brings people to Petoskey. So we've got to do something. The Winter Sports Park, I have loved my whole life. It needs attention. There is, you say, a shame to sit on money that can be used now to fix problems now. Well, a master plan is being put in place for the Winter Sports Park. So I want to say that I have to leave. I saw the mayor, he lets me bend his ear. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for always letting me bend your ear about everything. I came here tonight because I'm concerned about the vacancies in downtown Petoskey. And I'm hoping that you as a city council and us as the city of Petoskey stand up to people who do not take care of their properties, because it is a detriment to our little town. The top of Mitchell Street is dying. And that is a reflection on not just the property owner, but us as community members for letting it happen. So please stand up and fight, because we need it. Thank you.
I'm discussing with city manager. That's why it's on the agenda today, okay? I know you have to go. Thank you for your input. Smaller items such as what we're talking about, Mr. O'Neill, I'm sure that can be handled through other funds than having to utilize ARPA funds. This is a small fix.
Yeah.
And we do not need to use, this will be taken care of well before the ARPA is ever discussed, okay? I'm sure by next, 2 weeks, you're gonna say, wow, or a week, that'll be great, okay? Please, no, you gotta do the whole routine. Scott was gonna skate out of here. No.
My name is Scott Michael O'Neill. I live at 1219 Wakazu Avenue in Petoskey. And I have, on the swimming pool thing, I learned not to swim at Petoskey State Park, which at the time was just Petoskey Bleeding Beach. The suburb program that used to drive us over there in 3-foot waves. And to this day, if I stop in the water, I walk on the bottom. I cannot swim. So it's important that it's made accessible for the future of our children. I've lost a lot in my lifetime not being able to swim. So that needs to be revisited and something done that gives access to our schools even for that. What I was really here for, and I don't know if it's on your agenda, is the upgrade or the change to Pennsylvania Park. Is that on your agenda to be discussed?
No, you may speak about it now.
Okay, in the recent days, probably within the last 2.5 weeks, I heard of a project that's being developed. Kendall Smith, there. Vision of Pennsylvania Park, combining the two and moving the Veterans Memorial out of Pennsylvania Park to Arlington Park. I come from a family that has military history going back to and traceable to the Revolutionary War, having fought in numerous relatives in every war since then. My dad and my uncle were at Pearl Harbor when it was bombed. I'm retired Air Force, he's retired Air Force. We participated in the parades and everything in Petoskey since our retirements. And the community tends to congregate at Pennsylvania Park after those parades. It's been that way from my history here. And it'd be a detriment to community, to the military, to the town in general, if we move the monuments out of Pennsylvania Park, because it is the spot where in the central part of town that people walk through. They do their shopping, they're walking by the monuments. After the parades, the fathers and the mothers bring the kids over there and say what these people's names are on this monument. If you move this thing out to Arlington Park, how many of you have just cruised through Arlington Park to see what's there? It's not in the traffic flow of a person's life. If you move it out there, you're losing the impact that those monuments have and the respect that we're hoping to foster for the people that gave their lives to keep us and give us the privilege to be able to go to that park. So the public knowledge of this is minimal. Nobody knows that this is going on. We're starting to bring it to the attention. We're dealing with Derek here, and he's invited to a meeting with Kendall at the American Legion Hall so they can get more military impact. But it's not just the military, it's the families of people that have served in Vietnam and lost. The military people are just the living ones. The families, the grandchildren, they all need to know that this is a possibility of moving this out of there. And it's, how is this publicized? How do people know? You used to have a newspaper that at least would sit on the table and you could flip it and you'd see something going on. I heard about it.
Okay. When we're done, I'll give you some answers.
Can I say one thing too? That's the name and stuff again?
No.
Okay, I'll just say, I went to the Friendship Center, we have a coffee donut thing on Thursdays, 9 o'clock, and I went over the scenario about what's being put out there about this and asked them what they felt like, and to the person, basically, they said it needs to be left where it's at.
Okay.
So it's just.
I'll give you a summary of some of this, get you back on where it's really going on. We started at the Downtown Management Board, designed by Beck and Rader, who are a design company that the city hires. Okay. This has not gone to the Planning Commission. It has not come to City Hall. None of this is merely a throw something up and see what it looks like. There was discussion about them taking out the cannon. There was discussion about them taking out the railroad tracks. They got a big pushback on that. This thing is far from, this is at the Downtown Management Board, which really is not the Planning Commission. It's not City Council. So I would invite you to go to the Downtown Management Board meeting, which is, if you want to speak, where they will be looking at the plan, reviewing it. This is a draft. This is simply a draft, and it was really going nowhere without going to the, should have started at the Planning Commission to begin with, but because it's a Parks and Rec, but you can come to the Downtown Management Board and you can speak at that, and I can tell you when that is. Ms. Tweeden is there.
I think I'm not getting my point across that the community doesn't know this is happening. It should not, it should be happening.
This is just a concept. This is just ideas that you have to start somewhere with.
Does it cost all these things done?
Sure, we have to put some ideas together. Certainly, we're not.
The general consensus of the community is not to have what's going on. Why would we?
You will have an opportunity at many of these next few meetings. This is a 2 to 3 year out. This is 2 or 3 years away. Okay. There's no funds for this. This was what we were doing, is going to all of the parks in Petoskey, be it Washington Park, which was completed, or this park, which was completed a while ago. Now we're looking at the Winter Sports Park. This is visiting the parks and putting it down and taking and throwing up some ideas. You'll have an opportunity in the future. There is no cut and dry, anything has been decided. Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll get back with you. Anyone else wish to speak to council at this time? Okay, there being none, we're moving on.
A roll call.
Roll call, please, Ms. Beck.
Shields,
Yes.
Demore,
Aye.
Walker,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Next is new business, the adoption of a proposed resolution that would approve 2025 technology management agreement with Empiric Solutions Incorporated. And I turn it over to City Manager Horn.
Thank you. So this would authorize the continued engagement with Empiric Solutions Incorporated. They've been our information technology partner going back to 2016. So the current agreement has long expired. So this kind of gets us back into a normal contractual relationship. With this would be from January 1st of 25 through the end of the year. So it's a 1-year agreement, and we would evaluate that at the end of next year. So they do provide substantial, we don't have anyone in-house. Empiric provides these services for a number of public and private partners in and around our region, and really does a nice job for us. Have performed well. So my recommendation is to continue that partnership at the levels that are in the resolution. We will and have placed this in the budget for fiscal year 25. So we will have this earmarked appropriately, in the FY 25 budget.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Shane. So from what I hear, you are satisfied with the service that you are receiving from Empiric. And have you ever considered having your own IT department, but the cost would be more than like $100?
Yeah, I think that we had somebody, I don't know what house.
Michael Reed, I think he left the city in 2017. I think we
Okay.
hired Empiric in 18.
Okay.
And at the recommendation of Michael Reed said it was too much for just one person because of all the, servers, and even now more so since COVID and the pandemic with everything remote, library, lift things, because he was like working 24/7, so it's not a one person capability, and they have a whole staff that takes care of us.
Yeah, I do love the opportunity to walk down the hallway and engage with somebody in the building, but when you look at the cost of services that are provided, we could not do this at that amount.
And I did have another question, if I may, Mayor.
Please.
So with proposed security upgrades for the building, would there be additional costs that would be bared by Empiric Solutions, or would that all kind of be in-house as
No,
part of
that would be a
that?
separate contract. Yep.
Mr. Moore.
So did the scope of these services include our email as well? Is that something they do for us?
Yes.
And so I'm assuming, but I won't, just confirming that then they archive all those communications in compliance with FOIA and OMA. That's the question.
Yeah. I don't know if I have an answer for that. I don't know what their policy is for how long they keep that stuff.
Okay. I think that's probably something really important for us to confirm.
I don't understand your question, Tina. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I was curious if they are our email provider as well. And then my question was, if they are, what practice do they have for keeping emails and communications to be compliant with the Freedom of Information Act and Open Meetings Act? That was my question. Sorry, probably didn't ask it very artfully. So that would be something, I don't think it needs to hold a contract, but.
It wouldn't be part of this contract.
Right.
But we've looked into providers that do that. It's very costly to do that. even like on social media posts and such where we looked at a company that would help us make sure that we are collecting that input for FOIA purposes, and such, but we've not moved in that direction to set that money or set those things aside at this point, but certainly something we can entertain. We get a lot of calls on that from different vendors on allowing them to help us with that, but we really haven't gone that direction.
Yeah, my only concern is that we're complying, with any requirements we may have as an entity to meet those obligations. And then just out of curiosity, it says that this agreement expired at the end of 2019. So we haven't had an agreement in place with them. So how's this been working? Just like a month to month kind of a?
We've been a longtime client of theirs and it just keeps rolling forward, but it's certainly something we want to keep up with.
Okay.
And it's been to our benefit to keep rolling with the old number. As you can see, we had a little bit of bump, which I think is legitimate because they haven't had an increase for a number of years. So this kind of gets us back on track with that.
Thank you.
Excuse me, regarding the compliance with emails and saving things and stuff, it's been a little while since I spoke to them about this, but they have 6 different sites, 6 different servers that they house all of our information in, and they are compliant. That's been a couple of years with the acts that you spoke of, and they are able to retrieve, emails from years ago and upload them to us when we had a need.
So Audrey,
So we can follow up on that for you.
thank you. Audrey, if we could get something in writing from them that confirms that they meet any obligations we have relative to FOIA and I don't know if OMA applies, but any reporting requirements that they have if they're
We do use their services quite often for FOIAs, looking back on emails, and it's not been an issue. They're pretty responsive with that and have access to that data. So
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Wagner.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agreement with Imperial.
I'll be happy to second the motion, Mayor.
A motion from Mr. Wagner and a second from Ms. Walker. Any other discussion? Mr. Shield.
I just want to, thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo or thank Ms. Walker for the question of this asking about, is it in-house versus contracting? What's the value? What can we potentially be losing? So I just think that's a great question to continue to ask.
Anyone else wish to speak? Public wish to weigh in on this to council? Could be, and then I go to discussion roll.
Wagner.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Demore. Aye. Murphy.
Yes. Next was the adoption of proposed resolution approving the 2025 city council meeting schedule. You'll notice it's every first and second Monday of the month, first and third Monday of the month. Consistently with the exception of September.
November.
November's change. Do you have any other questions or comments, Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out a couple things. So last year, the ward convention was on June 17th and the city convention was on June 19th. So we did not meet on that Monday because that's when we held the ward convention. So last year we only met on June 3rd, which looks like this year would be June 2nd. So I just want to put that on everybody's radar to discuss. And second of all, last year in July, we did not meet on that Monday following the 4th of July weekend. We only met on the 15th, which this time would be the 21st. So I don't know what folks think about that.
I think that with the July 7th, if we decided as we got closer was not a lot of things that needed to be addressed that could be canceled. I'd rather schedule meetings and then drop them if needed than not having the ability to schedule them if something were important for the city. So we need to do in that July meeting that we have it available, and we can always in May and June say, okay, we don't need to meet on the 7th of July. That's my only take on keeping it in for now with the ability to scratch it if possible. Miss Walker?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to mention also the ward convention. So, and historically, we've always been concerned about making sure that we were in compliance with when we had to submit for election purposes for the ward, for ward representatives or the mayoral election cycle. So, previously, we had done it in July, giving us enough time for August submissions, I think it is, but last year we scaled it back to June, so I don't know if we just kind of forgot about that when we were proposing the schedule, but I don't know if city staff has a recommendation in terms of when the ward and city convention could or would be.
So the staff put this out because they took the first and third Mondays and are bringing it to you to discuss and come up with what works. Okay. So it's not an oversight by the staff, it's not all, it's them doing what we asked them to do, and that was come up with a schedule. We did not ask them to come up with a schedule for the ward convention and city convention. If you'd like to talk about that, we can now. Mr. Moore.
From my point of view, the way we did it last year worked well, having it earlier. And so that would be this year, the ward convention on the 17th of June and the city on the 19th of June. I don't know.
16th and 18th.
Oh, sorry, that was last year. Yeah, it would be the 16th, 17th and the 18th this year, because last year was the 17th and the 19th. So I don't know what other people's thoughts are.
I would think if we do that, then I think it's all the more important to have July 7th, that Monday be a city council, because otherwise you go from June 2nd to July 21st, you go for a month and a half with no city council. And so I think it's important to leave July 7th where it is. And I'm going to ask City Manager Horn to weigh in on this. Do you feel giving up the city council meeting for the 16th and 17th, that Wednesday, would that, how does that work for you?
Do you want to say something? No, I think that'll be fine. I do agree with you that if we did that we would really need to keep the July 7th meeting.
Are you good with that? Mr. Shields, Mr. Somebody wanted to comment before a motion.
I'm good with all the dates and doing the conventions that week.
Okay, Mr. Shields.
I'm also okay with this.
Okay, I wanted to make sure, I thought you were gonna make a motion, and I wanted to make sure that Mr. Weber got his say in before we move it forward. Does anybody wish to make the motion? Ms. Walker?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'll be happy to make a motion to approve the calendar of city council with the addition of Monday, June 16th and Wednesday, June 18th being the city and the ward and the city conventions.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, great. I have a motion from Ms. Walker. And I have a second from Mr. Shields, and that we will keep with this calendar.
Well,
The mic is off.
we'll remove the 16th as a city council meeting, the date though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So no council meeting 16th.
No
it's just
council
ward.
meeting on the 16th.
Oh, no.
They've requested the scheduling for the 16th and 18th to be the ward and
Yeah.
the city convention.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Board will be in the same, we'll work with that as we get closer.
Yeah.
I do think it was really great to have everybody here for the ward and for the city convention. I think that worked out well.
Yeah.
I was concerned about the room size, but it flew well. Yeah. Okay, go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Walker? Yes. Shields?
Yes.
Demore? Aye. Wagner?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes. Passes 5-0. Those in the audience that have not attended this board convention or city convention, I challenge you to show up to your ward conventions that day. I think you'll find it not only interesting, but ability to participate in it. get nominated, which usually will happen, and you come here for the city convention, 8 o'clock on Wednesday, that 2 days later, and participate in a pretty cool session here with July 16th, June 16th and June 18th. Okay, moving along. We have two other items. Discuss city attorney legal services request for proposals. Turn this over to city manager Horn.
So based on city council's feedback, we did release a request for proposals for city attorney legal services that was released on October 17th. We opened up proposals on October 31st, then had 5 responses to the RFP that are listed in your memo and or in your resolution. So I left the resolution kind of generic, just I wasn't sure who you wanted to invite to have further discussions with. So we would entertain any sort of motion to fill in that gap in the resolutions. If it's all of them, great. If it's 3, whatever that number is from city council, we'll make sure that we earmark that appropriately. And then we also need to try to schedule a date for these interviews / discussions with these proposed firms.
Council, Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Shane. So the second firm would be Plunkett and Cooney, and currently they are serving as our city attorneys, but this location is the one that's in Flint, and Rhonda does represent Plunkett and Cooney currently, but that would be from the Petoskey office? No? So wait. Okay, so just for clarification, Plunkett and Cooney is our current attorney, and it's a firm, and they have a location in Petoskey, but they also have locations elsewhere. So the proposed firm that has put in an RFP is this one specifically. And Rhonda Stowers is the representative from the Plunkett and Cooney firm in Flint, but she's currently serving as an interim.
No. As a partner in the process.
As a partner in the process. And then my second question was, is Jack Deegan the husband of the judge?
Yes. We could go and we can talk about each of these 5, and we can hash out and we can throw them down or pick them up. But what I'm wondering is this. There's 5 of them. And I'm asking you guys to make a commitment to helping to find a time. And I think it's important to listen to all 5 of these presentations. We can eliminate one, somebody mentioned in Detroit, there's one far away and doesn't have an office up here. I would hate to eliminate somebody without sitting down, listening to them. We have questions. I think the best thing to do is to put them in front of us for 45 minutes to an hour at the most. But give them an opportunity for you guys to ask questions, them to give answers, them to ask us questions. How do you know that one of these places is going to say, geez, if we get to work with you, we're opening up an office in downtown Petoskey. We don't know that. So I'm suggesting that rather than making choices and decisions on paper, like this stuff we got here, this folder, that we sit down with them and get a better feel for it. And I think we will be happier. But that's going to take us making a commitment that we're going to sit down as a group and we are going to interview each of these groups. Do you want to go run through? I see somebody, you've got stuff. Do you want to go through each one of them now, Ms. Demore, or anybody?
No, I appreciate the clarification, Mayor. I didn't realize that was the context of what we were trying to do. So thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Demore.
So I just would like to make some kind of broad comments. If that's the way we're going to move forward, that's fine. But
you don't have to. You guys want to do something different.
No, but I just want to kind of put some things on everybody's radar for when you're looking through the details. So first of all, to me, it's really important to look at what is the experience in municipal law specifically of the lead attorney that they're putting forth. More experience may equal more money per hour, but in my experience, often equals more efficiency, so that the hourly rate comes out to be no more than what someone else charges for a lower rate because they may take more time. Second of all, just comparing these hourly rates that we've been given on the sheet is not taking into account not only experience, but as you go through these, you're going to see that in addition to the hourly rate, some firms charge a rate for support staff. Some firms charge for paralegals, some charge for supplies, some don't. So those are really important things to factor in rather than just comparing those hourly rates. The other thing I'd mention that in these packets, these firms are mentioning who are their municipal clients, which is important and interesting. However, are those firm clients or are those clients of the person they're putting forth as the lead attorney? I think for us, it's really important to have experienced lead attorneys. So that would be an important thing to look at. And then one other final comment for your review is that if a firm identifies they have a conflict of interest, so every one of these firms will have looked through all the representation to make sure they're not representing somebody with a conflict of interest to the city. If somebody has a conflict of interest, that means that in a certain circumstance, if they're representing that other client, we would have to go with Plan B in that circumstance. And sometimes Plan B can be difficult to access on a single or certain issue. So I'm not saying if they have a conflict of interest, we shouldn't consider them. I'm just putting that on your radar for everyone's consideration. So thank you for allowing me that input.
And I know that you'll have opportunity to bring all those questions to each of the candidates when it comes time too. Anything else, council? Mr. Wagner?
Yeah, I'm supportive of bringing all five in. I'm curious of the timing of checking with the references, like who calls them? Do we narrow it down first? Do we call them in advance?
Do we narrow it down first and get a better feeling for these
That's
people?
what I'm thinking. Yeah.
You want to do 5 reference calls or I know if I give a reference, I'm sure they have going to give you my 5 best friends and neighbors that are going to call. Their names are going to be, I'm sure they're not going to give you Joe Schmo who I didn't get along with. Okay.
Yeah. And not even a big deal on the timing. It's just a question, but I'm in favor of bringing them all in.
Thank you. If we're in favor of that, I don't know, do we need a motion that we're in favor of bringing them all 5 in?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have a motion to bring all 5 in?
And then if we can lock down the schedule, if you want to do that now.
We need to start doing this now because to do it online over the phone and over the internet just seems to get quagmired into muck. So do I have a motion that we will interview all 5? Mr. Wagner?
I have a motion to bring all 5 in and work on a date, but
okay,
will work for all of us.
So I have a second.
Sure, support.
I have a motion from Mr. Wagner, a second from Ms. Demore. Any other questions? I take it to Ms. Beck for roll.
Wagner.
Yes.
Demore.
Aye.
Shields.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Now take out your calendar books.
Can I just add a postscript too? I would ask that anybody who's going to be proposed to be the lead be in these interviews. And if there's somebody that's going to be a co-lead or a second, that they need to be there as well. Thank you.
I guess I need to know what you're talking about. I think I see other people looking going, what?
I don't.
Clarification, is that the same as the designated attorney that's listed here, or are you asking for an additional person?
No, if you, sorry, I have to look back at what's here.
You're not asking for a lead from the city, you're asking for a lead from their attorneys.
There's in these packets, they're designating lead attorneys and second attorneys, or sometimes third attorneys.
Right.
And yeah, I was just asking that.
I think will be a good question to ask is who are we actually dealing with? Whose phone number do we have? How long was it before they get a response to us? Who is responding? Their location, all of those pieces.
And most of that information is in the packet, so
Right,
I'm
but I
just,
want to also ask them directly, because I want them to tell us. I don't want to say some secretary put this down. I want to know from you, who are we calling? What is our support? How fast? I also want to know I see their expertise, some of their expertise. I want to know, what is your expertise in short-term rentals? What is your expertise in vacant buildings? Those are some questions I think we need to ask the firms directly as well.
yeah, that's why I'm asking that all the people they're designating, lead, second, third, need to be available for those questions. That's what I was asking.
I look at doing this with them. I look at them coming here to do this with us, not Zooming it. So I question whether it's really realistic for us to ask 5 lawyers to come up here from wherever to meet with us. What? You don't think so?
I don't think they'll be needing 5 lawyers to come up. Again, in the packets,
Right.
it designates.
First, second, and third, yes.
Not even, usually just lead and second. But I'm going to be surprised if everybody's going to come in person. I would think this would likely happen by Zoom, but maybe I'm wrong.
Depends how badly they want it.
I don't think, so are you saying that we should do this all by Zoom? No, you made the comment, so follow it up with what your suggestions are.
I think it's optimal for them to be here in person. I don't know if it's doable. We'll find out.
So what do we do if one company says, we'd like to be your attorney, but we aren't gonna show up?
Demerit.
Is that the same kind of service we're gonna get when we need service?
And maybe you weigh that out as part of your evaluation.
I'm suggesting that we work and give them an hour. Now we need to talk about what our time is, because we're the ones hiring, they're the ones selling the shingles, the roof. They come to our house to meet with us and talk to us on our time as well. And so I think we need to discuss this. I think it should happen in January. I think it's unless you feel you want to do it in December. Do you want to do this in December? I'm going to give you another suggestion. I talked to Shane and I said, here's mine. And he says, well, bring it up and ask him. I don't know if you can get a Friday off, a morning and afternoon, two Fridays mornings or 2 Friday afternoons. But I think doing it here so that public can come in rather than Saturdays. I think it would be better to do it here. Public can come, public can, feel that there's this transparency word you guys keep throwing out. I think it's an opportunity for us to sit down, and if people want to see what we're doing, they can see what we're doing. Miss Walker, I know.
It's similar to the only 2 human beings that we hire as a city council, our city manager and our city attorney. And so.
And assessor.
And the assessor. Thank you so much. And I would think that it would be similar process and time that how we interviewed the city managers, that it would reflect kind of that same system.
Mr. Shields.
I'm okay with Fridays, but I guess I'm confused. If seeing the public would be more available on a Friday versus a Saturday, or because
I think it needs to be open to the public.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do as much as we can to make it available.
Okay.
Zoom to whatever it needs to be. What are you suggesting? Are you suggesting Saturdays?
Well, I don't know if I'm suggesting that just yet, but I'm saying if the public is, if we're, I mean, there's people work the weekends, there's people that work during the weekday, so that's tough.
Yeah, I know, it's all rough, it's all tough. But I think we do business normally Monday through Friday with the city. Are you guys willing to give up a whole Saturday or most of a Saturday for this? Or shall we go Fridays? The only reason I mentioned Fridays is because if we have attorneys that are coming from downstate, I would think a Friday would be better than a Monday and a Saturday for their firms as well, but
I agree that a Friday event makes a lot of sense.
I think we could do all 5 easily if we started at 9 in the morning. We could be out by 2. You want to take a half-hour lunch? 2:30.
And the chief of police too, when we were, director of public safety, it was a similar interview process, and I believe we had 7 candidates, didn't we? And it's just 5 farms?
Yeah, maybe 5. There might have been only 5. No.
Okay.
Do you want to weigh in on weekends that we're talking about? Is that okay? Or Fridays that we're talking about? Is that okay? Do you want to do something, City Manager Horn, I take, is going to reach out to these individual companies and see if he can lock times in. My other alternative was 2 Friday afternoons or 2 Friday mornings, if you wanted to break it up and not see all 5 at one time. Or we just get on the horse and we do 5, December, January.
January, if we're doing Friday, because my vacation days are limited for December, the rest of this year. So, but I can have one ready for January.
Miss Walker, because I know you are also working.
Oh, I'm a working person. Yes, I think Fridays would be best for me, but like January is a great time to have meetings because it's, it's winter. And so I would feel, and if all these attorneys had to submit their proposals and we open them at October 31st. So we're talking about November, December, by early January, I would think that seems like a timely time to evaluate or have the interviews.
Look at your calendar. Are you looking at the 10th, 17th?
So January the 10th, Friday. That'll be 4 days after the inauguration of our president. So maybe that would be a good time. I'm thinking about what's happening on the federal scale.
Thank goodness we're not on the federal.
What's your stuff? Sorry.
Derek makes a good point too. If you wanted to only, you'd be able to work a half day and maybe we start at noon. So you're able to get a half day in and not a full day, and then we can go noon to 5.
If I'm gonna do interviews and the 5 attorneys, I would think that each interview is gonna be about an hour and a half, 90 minutes.
Hour. You guys will come in. Tina came in with some questions that she had said. I know she's gonna ask some of these questions that she drew up. You guys are also gonna have some questions. I can't, there's 5 of us. We've got, if you were to cut it up, which I don't want to do, but you'd have 12 minutes to ask questions by yourself. If you wanted.
I'll have some proposed questions that you guys can vet. So we're structured. I think that's important.
Perhaps you send questions to him and he can.
Just like we good list right now.
The city manager, when we did it with him, we had the same questions for everybody. Let's you have quite a while to do that. He mentioned noon to 5 one day or noon till 5:30. Did you want to do that and just miss a half a day of work on a Friday?
See now, Derek, my colleague knows that Tina wants to do that schedule.
We wouldn't start before 10 anyway. Was that okay?
I was gonna say 7 till noon and get it over with, so I had the rest of the afternoon and evening to live out life. I mean, I like getting up and getting going.
I'm taking a whole day off of Friday to
Okay.
do these interviews and
You
give
sure?
it time. Absolutely.
It isn't, I mean, I understand if you want to only lose a half a days of work, we'll do a half days for you guys. Well, you two are the ones that are vacation time, not me. I'm,
Plenty of time to ask for a day off, and I have no problem with that. And I think it should be a focused in a day, and I'm completely fine with that. So thank you for considering the working class proletariat.
what about Derek? What about you? Well, I don't want to eat up all your vacation time because you've got kids, you got a wife, you got stuff you like to do. Is a half a day better for you than a whole day?
It doesn't matter, Mayor. Thanks for asking. Yep. If it's done early, then I get a longer weekend, just a little bit. So.
Okay, so we'll start at 7 on the 10th. This family. Okay.
Plea for the attorneys that might be traveling up here too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean,
Big
something more
goal.
reasonable to come up from Flint or, Grand Rapids.
They're probably gonna stay overnight anyway, right?
I don't know, again, we're looking at January, hopefully there aren't travel issues.
Or jet.
Want them in person.
Helicopter.
Private plane.
We'll have the landing strip back here open for them. So you're in charge of that.
That sits on the airport authority board.
That's right. Yes, we'll get them in.
Okay,
So is 10 a compromise?
the 10th, okay,
No, I'm talking about 10 a.m.
10 a.m. on
Yeah.
the 10th.
10 and 10.
1, 10, 25, 10.
Tina, are you okay at 10 o'clock in the morning? Well, I know there's a concern. I want to make sure you're
Yes.
happy. I want you to be happy. Okay, so we start at 10 and we go till probably 4, because we'll probably take a break in between at some point after 2 or 3, okay? 10 o'clock on the 10th. I knew we could get this done. I think Shane thought this isn't gonna get done. This isn't gonna get done. And I thought, yes, it is.
May I ask a question, Mayor? Real quick?
Please.
Can somebody remind me what our hourly rate that we're paying right now for our attorney services is? Even though that's not all
I believe it's
inclusive, I understand.
200.
We
200?
do 2 different rates for lead attorney and support staff. I can run them upstairs, but I
No.
can't remember right now, 135, 145, and
Oh, it's that low? I don't think it's that
How
low.
about if you do this? Send the info to Shane. He will send it to us. Because there's no sense in guessing. Yeah,
it's fun.
we're good. Don't get out.
I think we're paying a different rate for partners
Yeah,
and senior attorneys
Mhm.
versus,
yeah.
Plunkett, they're charging us for support staff too.
She's gonna find out and send it to us. The lady has got a lot on her mind of other stuff too. Okay. That's a good move. Do I have a motion? I want a motion on this. I want this down. I want a motion that we're meeting on July 10th at 10 o'clock and that December. We're meeting January 10th at 10 o'clock. Will be the starting of interviews and that city manager will be making contact with these people.
Yep.
Do I have a motion on that?
I'll be happy, Mayor, to make a motion for the interviewing of the attorneys on January 10th of 2025 at 10 a.m.
Second the motion.
Can I just put a small concern on the record here
Yes.
about, you might want to not do a motion and have some flexibility here. As an attorney, sometimes these folks have trials scheduled out months in advance. And you could encounter some difficulty there that's perfectly reasonable. So, I think You talked about the 10th and the 17th. Maybe it'll all go well on the 10th, but I don't know how you want to deal with that.
I'm sure he's gonna get on the phone within this week and probably make contact. So at the next meeting, he can come back and we could move it if need be. How's that?
So why don't we wait on the motion? I guess that's.
Should I retract my motion then?
I'm saying to wait on the motion. We have consensus. It's on our calendars. I don't know.
I have, council has complained at times that we give directives and they're not being followed through. And so in talking with the city manager, I said, anytime we request you to do anything major, we will do it in a form of a motion in a second. So therefore, all council understands what they want, but our city manager also understands what we want. So I leave it to there at that. I just think this cleans it up and it's on record that we're doing it at this point. We are meeting again in what, 10 days?
Yeah.
10 days. He should be able to let us know that that's not good and we can rescind this motion and make changes then. Yes.
As a city manager, do you feel you need a motion on this? It's up to you. I mean, if you do.
Yeah, I mean, that was part of the resolution, so we might as well just go ahead and fill it in and have it. Well, we passed the resolution on the names. I thought we were gonna incorporate everything in one resolution, but it's okay.
Mr. Wagner, any comments? Good moving forward.
I'm good moving forward and just sending if we need to.
Okay. Ms. Beck, roll.
Walker,
Yes.
Shields, Demore,
Sure.
Wagner,
Yes.
Murphy.
Aye. Okay. Now. This can be a long discussion, a short discussion, or a medium discussion. This to discuss, no motion, to discuss vacant building registration ordinance. You have in front of you two of them, one from Adrian and another from
Gross Point.
A second one, you have two.
Yes.
I looked them over and I felt the first one was more better boilerplate of it, but I thought there was a couple pieces of second one that I would like to see installed into that possibly. But I also know we need city attorney to look this over. And this is a first step, just discussion. So who would like to bring on some discussion? Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so a little high level here. I have not gone through these two ordinances and examples in any fine way, but as the public commenter, forget her last name, earlier today, Ms. Singer mentioned, there is very public facing vacancies in our community. And I like the Adrian ordinance where in the purpose, it spells out that this type of action would be for protecting neighborhood integrity or the downtown integrity and property values, that vacant properties have a negative impact on the surrounding properties and neighborhoods. So at the high level, I appreciate this as coming before us as an opportunity to discuss, and I want to voice my support for us digging into this and, without going into the details now, I do support an ordinance like this.
Okay. If you look at section, the second one's 14501, which talks of registration on by the second gross point. I didn't know if a lot of that stuff was included, such as when it's talking about multifamily apartment buildings, more than just one unit. How do you handle that a little differently? And I felt that was something, those are excluded or handled differently. I felt that there was something that struck me as interesting on that piece of it which is not, I didn't see, I may have missed it, but on the first one. On section 14.503, on the second one, it also talks about condition. I'm looking at how long does a builder have to correct some of this stuff and some of that tightening down of stuff. I didn't see that. I know the fee thing is also kind of open. I felt the fees were light. It talked of on a gross point of 90 days. I see no reason why we give somebody 90 days to start doing something. I think 60 days is enough to get your act together. If you can't do something in 9 weeks, then 10 weeks, you're probably not going to do it. So I think tightening down, I like some of that piece. I thought the penalties were very low at $150 first offense, $250 for the second one. I say jack it up. You got a vacant building, it's gonna cost you. Miss Walker.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Shane for presenting the information from Adrian, because I remember when we interviewed Shane, he had talked about kind of some of the tools in his toolbox that he had utilized previously as a city manager city manager, I'm sorry, in the city of Adrian.
Yes.
And I also looked to the downtown strategic plan. And on page 5 of the strategic plan, there is a section about non-local property owners and the city ordinances addressing blight, vacancy, mandate rental inspections, or require inspections upon granting of a new occupancy permit. Finding ways for non-local owners to sell, reinvest their properties to avoid capital gains taxes. And so I think the timing of this is absolutely perfect, that we have these discussions and we decide in terms of how international property code maintenance reporting is serving our citizens and our residents in our downtown or not in ways with a possible new firm representing the city. This would be a really good kind of practice and maybe being able to evaluate a potential ordinance, and maybe those attorneys would come with some suggestions or experiences, like a little, I don't know if that's reasonable to ask of somebody that you're interviewing, but I'm excited about the possibilities of having something in the form of an ordinance that gives the city a little bit more control over what's happening with our downtown and holds those owners accountable for the vacancies. And if you look also, like we're talking today about the downtown assessments, and as well as you can highlight all of the vacant buildings, and those assessments are based on the square footage on the first, second, third floor or basement. And I wonder, like, are the assessments on specific vacant properties in downtown Petoskey enough for the business owner to do something about it? And does everybody pay the downtown assessment? Is there anybody that would be in default of not paying that? And so I guess those are all questions I have, and I'm excited about the possibility of bringing and aggregating all of these things that we've been dealing with for some time, as well as our goals of our Livable Petoskey Master Plan and the strategic planning for the Downtown Management Board, because I think it's very much in line with what we were planning to do strategically. So thank you.
Mr. Shields, your pen was up. Is that?
I do have more questions.
Okay, but I thought your pen was up and you were wanting to go.
Sure, I will go. Thank you, Mayor. So when I'm looking at some other examples in our communities, there's the fee that is the registration fee. There's different examples. Usually those are, as you look at them, are fairly low, but I know they can go as high as Burlington Mont does $500 for 4 times a year. It has to be renewed, which that gets significant, but and this is a question to city staff, is then that has to be administered. So, and those fees have to be justified to administration costs. So you can't just say $2,000 because we want that as a strip penalty, they have to be the real cost of administration. So that's fees, but there's also penalties in a lot of these examples where penalties can be, they're not following ordinances, and then given notice, there can be a penalty per day. And that's where some of the costs can really go up for a non-compliant landowner. There's that question. My question to Manager Horn is the administrative, how can this be administrated? And then second question to the for consideration is, you mentioned multiple floors. Is this something that would be restricted to just first floor, or would it, and that would be my recommendation at this point, versus some of these second and third floors downtowns that yes, we'd like to see them not be vacant, but I think we're addressing something else right now. And you talked about the timeliness. And then also, does this apply to vacant land as well? As I saw that in one or two examples in my search, but and I don't think that's clear in these two examples.
Yeah, I know in Adrian, when we did it, vacant land did not apply, and we did not do second floors. It was only first floor. And I know this, you are correct. There's a registration fee, which, we would have to manage and make sure that we're following up with that. So we'd want to have that covered. But the penalty section was much more substantial than what's listed in, I think what they're listing in there is just a civil infraction, which is the standard, that's the standard amount, 150 and 250. But the penalties, when I left, they were in the thousands.
Wow.
And it was a sliding scale. So if you were vacant for a year, it was, I'll just say 1,000. If it was 2 years, it was 1,500. It slid up as you left it vacant and could not prove that you were actively marketing that property. So it was substantial from a fee schedule standpoint. So.
Yes. Mr. Moore.
So just high level without digging into all the details tonight, my perspective is that both of these have something to offer, both Grosse Pointe and the Adrian model. Adrian, of course, had a lot more details. But I would just suggest you work on creating a combination that utilizes the best aspects of each of the two.
It's my opinion as well. I agree. Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my other question is also with currently it's voluntary fire inspections for downtown buildings, and businesses will either voluntarily ask because it impacts, from what I understand, their insurance rates, but overall it could have an impact on the downtown central business districts collective insurance rates. I don't really understand very much about insurance, but I'm just wondering if there could be additional leverage written into the ordinance that might help go from voluntary fire inspections to something more regulatory as a way to, I don't want to say incentivize that because it's not an incentive, it's a mandate. It would become a mandate under an ordinance, but could that also be included? Because I know that the status of some of the vacant buildings that we've been very specific about downtown began because somebody began the International Property Code maintenance anonymous tip that had to do with fire suppression systems. So I'm wondering if there's a way to be more proactive with fire inspections as part of this proposed ordinance.
Is it right, Shane, that insurance companies give classification on cities, on communities, on distance, how far you are, ISO, and the numbers regarding the fire hydrants, the fire numbers, the trucks, the train, all of that stuff. And we will never, ever be the high level that some large cities have. Sure. The number, we'll never reach that. So your insurance is basically for that stuff, as I was understanding. Yeah, it was a lot location.
Yeah, and I don't know the history of why we went volunteer versus regulatory. I don't know, Amy, if you know any of that history, but we do inspections on fire, suppression equipment, which is kind of what triggered what happened at four. I get those numbers wrong. Something like that. So our inspectors are certifying those, and that's a regular occurrence that they make their rounds, but maybe that's another legal question we ask. How do we put a little more teeth into that? And maybe that could be built into this ordinance as well somehow.
Yes.
I think all these questions that are being raised are really important questions, but it also really focuses on the importance of legal assistance because in this lane, you have to be really careful. I know we've talked about that before. So what's possible and not possible.
One more reason for doing a really good job interviewing law firms when we look to who we're hiring. You want somebody that has experience or somebody on staff that has this type of experience, which will then be very beneficial working with Shane to present to us the information. So that's why it'll be very important for Shane to also be a part of the interviewing piece of it as well. I think it's very important, not just for council, but I think staff needs to be there as well, because there are questions that need to be asked that we may not have to always deal with. Mr. Moore.
Just a side question. Shane, are you interested in us submitting potential question ideas to you for those interviews or?
How about I pass on what I've used in the past and then you can mark those up or put additions on there. I've got a pretty good list already, so I'll send that out. You guys can add to that and then we can kind of do like you did for the city manager interviews, kind of designate certain people to ask questions so it flows.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So I guess a question for me or a follow-up for me, would you like, this really is, as Councilmember DeMore said, I would need to lean on the legal side of this to put this together. Should we proceed with what we have currently, or would you like me to just wait until we kind of go through this process and get on the other side of it? I don't want to wait too long on this.
I think doing it now, don't you? I mean, why wait 2 months to get something going?
Yeah.
If we're not happy with what we get, you tell us if you're not happy with what you get from Plunkett and Cooney, and we can then kick the ball down the road.
I'll just share these two and say that there seemed to be some desire to kind of merge some of these things together and get their views on what they think.
Mr. Moore.
I'll only give one caution to this. If we do that and we hire a new law firm, they may want to start again. It could get messy. I lean to the side of waiting to send this to whoever it is. I understand the urgency, but we've been without this for a long time. So I wait and send it to whoever we decide upon. That would be my perspective.
My concern is we're not gonna, by the time we get through, when we hire somebody at the end of January and we get them on board to February, it's gonna be March, which is 6 months away from now.
Yeah, there's always business that's like in motion, right? So we're starting with the process and we'll move it along as Shane sees fit based on our recommendations from right now. And if another attorney firm is hired between now and when we actually make a decision, that'll just be an opportunity for them to chime in.
I'm gonna ask the city manager what you think.
It's possible we could, and I don't know, Tina, you might be the one to tell me that's a terrible idea because of this is your lane, but maybe we ask them to do an example, we're interested in a vacant building registry ordinance. Let's see your example of that.
Yeah.
They're gonna say, don't do it. I don't want them to say, we're not interested. It's interesting because some of the examples that I saw for their submittal, the city would say, okay, as an example of your ability, we would like you to write your contract for us to consider. I mean, as a writing exercise for council to consider. So communities have done something like that before. This might be a little bit much.
Mayor, can I?
Ms. Walker.
I do have one more question. Is it possible to get input from our city enforcement officer, who's the one that is pretty the boots on the ground? And he was also part of the downtown planning, like we want to hire code enforcement officers, was in that same section about vacancies downtown and absentee landlords. So I would hope that we would be able to get his opinion as well as maybe the Emmett County inspectors in terms of their role, how that plays out. And I know that those eventually go to court. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
So Shane, do you suggest that we wait until January to do this, or do you feel comfortable doing this now?
Yeah, I kind of think, as was mentioned, we've kind of gone this far without it. It probably makes sense to get somebody engaged and let them go through it. But that's just my opinion.
Wait until we hire a city attorney?
Yeah.
Mayor,
Mr. Shields.
thank you, Mayor. My opinion is that we do have work to do yet, and that we can engage council later. But as Mr. Moore said, pulling out some of the things we like out of both the two examples here, and then giving us another time to look at it, there's going to be a lot of I think there's still going to be a lot of need and desire for this body to pick at it. I think that's okay to have that process happen before legal review. This is something that very likely legal and council will have a little bit of differences on, and we as a legislative body may have to make decisions that we'll go back and forth with legal body on this. So I think there's work to be done at this stage right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Wagner. Thought you were gonna skate. No, it's your turn. I support Shane and waiting. There was part of me thinking we could go get this done quicker, and it would just be another document that a new league law firm's not gonna come in and go back and change everything we've ever done. It's just the most recent one, and in terms of waiting for input from us, I find that both of these have elements that are good, and it's not my job to do that. It's to go create a legal document. So I want something that's going to accomplish the objective. So you are saying?
I would say that Director Carr and myself and Tony Belmonte, code enforcement, we have had discussions with Plunkett Cooney, with Rhonda and Jack Deegan about this and about a process that we can use, because we seem to give a lot of notices out and nothing happens. And we need to get a process down where boom, 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 we're moving forward instead of in legal limbo land, if you will, on what do we need to do? Do we keep sending notices and just, paint their door with citations, or what is our legal next steps that are sustainable and enforceable in the court arena, if you will? So we've been having these discussions. I think moving this forward into Plunkett Cooney's realm with your input, I think probably is fine. If you want to give me some of, I think Adrian's example is more substantial. So if you want to review maybe gross points and pick those items out that maybe would complement Adrian's, that would be helpful for me. And then we'll kind of have one working draft that will have Plunkett Cooney kind of review from their legal side, but we make sure from your standpoint that we're doing exactly what you would like to do. So maybe that's what
Yeah.
we do.
Moving forward is good.
Yeah, the gross points is fairly, is a little more simple and I think a little straightforward, so it'd be easy to run through that. And if you think there's some gaps in the Adrian one that you'd like to address using some of the language in gross point, then you can give me that direction.
The gross point did hit a couple spots that I thought were a little lean on the Adrian.
Yep.
Those apartment pieces. Okay, so moving forward. Okay. City Council comment, Miss Walker, Ward 4.
Thank you, Mayor. I am so grateful for our city staff and led by the fearless clerk, Sarah Beck, in our elections, and of course, the support staff that were there and the volunteers. It's just such a reaffirming, and it's wonderful to be able to go and vote. And I appreciate those that, you know, filed their absentee ballots, which were more significant than the actual voters on the day of the election. I love the kind of political theater of going and voting in person. And I think also if we want to consider changing our polling locations, like what would that look like for City Hall? Having, you know, moving away from having to pay for a facility like we have with our city conventions, moving out of the Emmett County Fairgrounds. And now that, you know, voter turnout is around 1,600 people, I think it was. I mean, for on election day, I don't know how we would arrange that, but I think as those numbers kind of change and evolve with absentee ballots and this remote early voting location, I just think that it's worthy of consideration, and I don't know the logistics of how that would work, but I would be in favor of looking at other city-owned properties for actual voting day. And I remember really back in the day in Ward 4, we used to vote like where Tom and Dick's is, I think, and there was a voting.
You voted in the old pump house, which was torn down, and a new house was put in there. It's next door. It's east of Tom and Dick's.
I mean, I see the value of having it in one aggregated area because people don't always know what ward they are. I'm sure you experience that a lot when people come in to vote, that they're like, oh, I don't know which ward I am. So, so maybe distinct voting or polling locations in wards makes sense, but maybe a consolidated area like we've been doing for these many years makes more sense.
I see a difficulty though, when you look at Sarah and her main staff are in one location. And for her to be in 4 locations, it means we're gonna have to have more staff spread out at 4 locations, correct?
No, I thought the way I heard.
These are my comments and these are not up for discussion.
Okay. All right. Mr. Walker. Mr. Wagner.
Sarah's really interested in having this discussion at some point. We've talked about it and would love to have that.
Mr. Wagner, Ward 3.
Thank you. I had a really important call a couple of weeks ago from a second grader at Concord Academy, Petoskey. And she said, hello, Grandpa. I know I'm not supposed to be using my phone during the school day, but my teacher said I could. We're studying government. Can you come and present on city council in Petoskey? And it would be really great if you could bring the mayor. So we're going to Petoskey Concord Academy tomorrow morning. And I talked to her a couple hours ago and she said, I am so excited to bring in the mayor. It's not about me, by the way. And one of my classmates is currently up in the UP and coming down just for that meeting tomorrow morning. So big tomorrow, Mayor.
I guess I'm wearing a shirt and tie.
Your name tag.
Mr. Shields, Ward 2.
Thank you. 2 requests. First, we have a discussion on an agenda on whether this body will direct city staff to put together a proposal for deer management in the city. 1. Second, this city is largely built out. not completely, but largely, and yet we still want to accommodate growth. I think it is time and it would be very important to seriously consider 425 agreements. Those are collaborative annexations or expanding the city boundaries. That's what the 425 agreement is about. City taxpayers support a lot that townships neighbors utilize and enjoy, and I think it's prudent in our city residents' interest to expand the tax base. Now, I think this may be vital to balancing growth while maintaining the character of our town and surrounding area. Thus, the request that this body discuss this topic in 2025, if not sooner. Thank you.
Mr. Moore.
So just very briefly, in response to Mr. Neal, I do see that on November 11th, which happens to be Veterans Day, at 6 o'clock here in the City Hall Community Room, you may already know this, that as a part of new business, they're going to be presenting that draft site plan of Pennsylvania Park and of Arlington Park. So that might be an opportunity for you to learn more about what's being presented and more information. So I just wanted to say that on the record.
Could you tell them again where and when?
Yeah, it's on Veterans Day.
Monday.
6 o'clock in the City Hall Community Room, which is just right opposite to us, yes. And under new business, presentation of the draft site plan of both Pennsylvania Park and Arlington Park.
And what organization or group is that?
That is the Parks and Recreation.
I knew that, but I wanted you to tell them.
Okay.
It's the Parks and Rec.
All right. Second of all, I just want to echo everyone's thoughts and gratitude to Sarah and her team for their efforts on what I call the front lines of democracy. And it is indeed, and job well done. Third of all, I want to echo my colleague Derek's statement to the extent that I too believe in the importance of seeking, engaging meaningful public input, agree or disagree, as long as it's constructive. That's our job. Those are our constituents. We're always happy to hear that input. A couple updates for the Petoskey Youth Advisory Council. Also on Veterans Day, they will be here with a deep dive into public safety. And when I say deep dive, I've asked the chief to pull out all the equipment, et cetera. So that would be good. And then in December at our meeting, I'm very pleased that Eric Hemingway, the Director of Archives and Repatriation at the LTBB, the Little Traverse Bay Bands, will be here with the Youth Advisory Council to talk about Native American roots of our community, Native American governance practices, and those sorts of things. So once again, another one of you is always invited to come along and join us. And then finally, I just want to say that I expect that sometime when people watch these meetings, they get the perception that it's somewhat messy. And I celebrate that messiness, because what that says is that the decisions that are being made here are made at this table. So for the first time, we're hearing things, you're hearing things, there's constructive dialogue, and through that process, we come to an agreement, sometimes 5-0, sometimes not. So for those that are looking and seeing some messiness, I would encourage you to celebrate that, because that is transparency. Thank you.
There being no further business come before this council, I call this meeting